Thank you for joining us for Tech Tuesday. John and I are excited to be here. Would love to hear in the comments where people are from and joining us. And as a reminder, if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. We will go over those toward the end. And so with that, we have a short, simple deck to kick us off. Let me share my screen here. Just a quick little intro, but I'm excited for our talking points today. So again, we are the optimization specialists. We're here to help you save time, money, and energy. In today's topics, we're going to help with kind of a cleanup of your workflows. The end of the year is coming, so we want to help you get a jump start on that versus saying that you're waiting until January 1st, right? Like we can start setting those systems in place now to help ditch the chaos and build more clarity, not only within your company, but with your team as well, which will also help you with more clarity with your clients. And so exciting news is that as we've worked with customers, John has built a couple of really neat ways of automating some phone conversations, which is kind of a loose topic, but we'll get into it. And then a CRM automation from the toolkit into the project management system. So excited to show what those look like and kind of the behind the scenes of that today. But before we hop into that, I would love to have a quick highlight of what happened. And so John and I met for the second time in person ever after working together almost 4 years. And we did a presentation during San Antonio Startup Week, and we gave out fake money. It is fake money. But with that being said, we're kind of trying to take the theme of building systems and not bottlenecks and bringing that into Tech Tuesday. So these were kind of our talking points during that presentation. So we don't want you to miss leads because that's missed revenue, right? We want to help you automate those manual tasks because wasted time is wasted money. And then if you're confusing your team by inconsistent communication or delivery of projects, then you're also wasting time or creating silos. And so our goal is to help you build stronger systems that can help build clarity, consistency, and scalability. And so that's kind of like the very black and white, like this is what we did, but it was really a truly fun event, and it was fun to meet John again in person. And so just want to kind of highlight that. And so John, what was your feedback? This was your first time in San Antonio. What did you think?
Yeah, I loved the energy in San Antonio, the startup community, I guess you could say, or the founder community there, just all the tools you have at your disposal. It was cool to see the geekdom area, and again, just all of the different organizations that are set up throughout San Antonio to help founders get started. And as we're going through this list, kind of like the summary of our conversation, which actually that also came out, or that's going to be coming out tomorrow on our podcast. So we do have that recording. So if you want to listen to the recording, we have the audio version of it. Otherwise, you'll see a very zoomed out version of this conversation. But we have the audio version that'll be going live on Wednesday. And then as we're going through these, I'm realizing that we truly are implementing a lot of these different pieces. And to your point, like the automating the phone conversations or the transcriptions of that and the other technology I'm going to show today is a true example of this building systems and not bottlenecks. And every time we meet with the client, there's a new type of system or a new type of automation that we can add that I haven't done before, or it's a different variation, but it always helps save that time, money, and energy with all of our clients.
I love that. Yeah, it was so fun having you in town. And we'll move forward because I just wanted to quickly highlight that. And exciting news on that podcast, excited to listen to the playback too. It was a jam-packed room, which was super fun to have you in as well. So just as a reminder, we've already kind of touched on it, but just highlighting that at the Optimization Specialist, we are here to help save time, money, and energy. And we do that with a done with you service. And we really want to help people use their technology to their fullest, but not having to learn the new technology, right? It's more of it just works and it does the things that you want it to do. So it's super fun. We've worked with several clients. These are some of our favorites. Actually, the two examples coming up today, I don't think are on this list, but we love them too. They're great. And so with that, before I turn it back to John for why y'all are here on Tech Tuesday, I want to just remind James Clear said, we don't rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems. And every single time you're building something as a founder, as a business owner, you are going to hit a glass ceiling, and you're going to continue to have to break through that glass ceiling. And as you contract and expand, those systems are going to change. And what used to work is not always going to work. And especially looking at technology and how AI is driving things now, and automation is so important. We are always on the front end of this. And so we want to encourage you to continue to rise and fall, not, wait, sorry. We want to continue to encourage you to enhance your systems, but also setting those goals, because you're only going to get so far with either one of them. And so one cool thing that we do here at the Optimization Specialist is we have systems in place, but we're constantly reevaluating them. And by constantly, sometimes that means weekly, and sometimes that means quarterly. Maybe even monthly, but we want to be on top of what those things look like. And so with that, John, if you have anything else to add, please feel free to, but I do want to turn it over to you, and you can start doing a screen share on some automation tips that we're going to hop into today.
Yeah, awesome. And before I share my screen for the automation stuff, adding to what you were talking about, Christy, with the power of AI, we all know how powerful AI is, but from a improving your systems aspect, I love that you can use, I always use ChatGPT as an example, but essentially using ChatGPT as that thought partner. So if you are aware enough to understand the bottlenecks in your business, you can sit there and have a conversation with ChatGPT and said, if you were an expert at automations or workflow design, what are some workflows that I could do to improve some of these systems? You might not be as aware. What is the quote you always use? It's hard to read the label when you're inside the jar. That is very common, especially if you are a founder wearing multiple hats. You don't have time to be that operations expert because you're doing payroll and marketing and managing and doing all the things. And so if you plug in your industry and kind of just show what your value prop is, or what you kind of do on a day-to-day, ChatGPT can also highlight some potential options for you to automate different things. And so we actually kind of use that when we jump on discovery calls. I've shown this on one of our last Tech Tuesdays of somebody books with us, it goes and does quick research on their company and might give us a few suggestions on how we could help support that company. But you have a lot more information about your company. We're trying to figure it out from your website. You plug in everything, and most likely at this point, ChatGPT already knows everything about your business. And so if you plug all that in and say, I need to remove bottlenecks and highlight these things, have that conversation back and forth, and it can come up with some of those automation ideas that might be really powerful. And that leads to this automation that I built for a client of ours. This is my buddy, Ben. He owns On Purpose Adventures, and they do team building and for businesses, like large corporations, like Google has hired him, and like a lot of these large companies. And so right now, he is stepping into sales calls. And so for us, we use Fathom AI. We've talked about this in the past. Like when we have video calls, it's very easy for that to jump on. But then like you have to go and extract the action items and things like that. Here, he is making phone calls through the toolkit. And so those are recorded, which are great. But then he's like, I have these action items. And when you're spoiled, when it comes to video calls and all the action items are extracted and the transcripts and everything, it's great. But from a phone call perspective, that's a little bit more, we'll call it analog, I guess. But thankfully, we were able to build an integration. He asked, like, can I get this transcribed? And there's transcription in the toolkit, cool. But again, I needed to copy that into ChatGPT, extract my key points and everything. So long story short, we built it that as soon as that call is done, that is stored inside of the Twilio API. And we built an automation that goes and pulls that, uses ChatGPT to transcribe it. And then we gave it a prompt that basically told everything that we wanted to grab from it. What are the key points? What are the next steps? What does the client owe us? And what do we owe the client? And so this is great. Right now, we're dropping into a spreadsheet. We could very easily just like send this information right back to the CRM if we wanted to inside of the toolkit. But here he wanted in spreadsheet form. So that way we had the separate columns. I had to figure out, it came back in one big blob from ChatGPT. And I used ChatGPT to say, hey, there's like 4 sections to this response. How do I separate it out into 4 separate fields? So I don't try to act like I have all the answers. I at least know my North Star and where I want to go. And ChatGPT was able to help me kind of take this blob of information that was coming back and split it into these different groups. So now he can go through, or his VA can go through and see this information and understand what she needs to pick up. A couple of these you'll see like send an invoice and different things like that. And so he doesn't have to do anything other than make the call, finish the call, and hang up. And now all of that information is extracted. So again, in a world when we do video calls and there's some of those AI note takers, it's really powerful, but it was a little bit more difficult because there's not a native solution for just regular phone calls through the CRM. So this is really exciting because Ben understood his vision. He knew where that bottleneck was of, cool, I had this call and I have to like do the notes. I'm in a car and I have to remember this. You know, a lot of times he travels about 3 hours north of here to Greenville and he's doing these sales calls and he has no way to write down as he's driving down. And if he gets to his destination 2 hours later, like that's when he has to take the notes. So now he doesn't have to worry about it. So this was a great way to highlight like, hey, I'm doing sales calls. How do I automate this? All of this was done between the CRM and a Google Sheet through make.com. And so if you have ChatGPT at your disposal with make.com, you can pretty quickly figure out how we can take information from one application and then import it or add it to Google Sheets. So Google Sheets is a great way to integrate with this. This is in the cloud, and so it's very easy to just add rows to this. So this is a really cool way, again, to take something that's kind of analog and manual and turn it into something that's automated.
Yeah, Tom, this is great. One question I want to pull out right here. As we talked about technology, it's Tech Tuesday. You've highlighted the technologies you used, and I think I heard you say Twilio. So for our audience, could you just dive into what Twilio is and how that also plays here?
Yeah, great question. So Twilio essentially is the backbone of most. It's got a big stakeholder in the market for text messages and phone calls that happen over like the internet. And so like in our toolkit, anytime a text message goes out or a phone call comes in or goes out, it's actually through Twilio on the back end. Again, developers took care of all of that. Not too difficult from my end when we integrate things, but Twilio truly is like the service that's behind the scenes doing all of that. So that's where they host the recordings. Thankfully, we have access to the link. And like we put the link in here. So if you actually click on that, he could go back and re-listen to that recording. You can obviously do it from within the toolkit, but when he's on this sheet with over 40 different calls that have happened with notes, he can go directly to that recording and listen to it. So yeah, that's what Twilio is used for today. And I don't know what their market share is, but it's a very big number because they were like one of the first people to market, and they're just one of the standard go-tos for most developers.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. And so this second automation is also an integration between a CRM and in this case, it's going to be Monday.com. And they are a property management company and they manage short-term rentals. And so they do their people management inside of their CRM, and that's where they track everything. But when a client finally signs on for this property management to manage their short-term rentals, their Airbnbs, then they need to do an onboarding. And so originally they were having the form filled out and that information is stored in the CRM. Then they have a virtual system that comes behind them, copies and pastes the information into Monday.com, assigns it. And there's a lot of fields that kind of need to be copied. And so we've worked with them in the past for different setups on Monday, but they wanted to connect the two again in this case. And so essentially now when the client fills out the onboarding form, puts in the information about the location or the property that they need managed, and they click submit, we're able to pull all of that information over into Monday.com. The right people get notified, the dates are tracked. And so we took out that whole middle person to have to like copy and paste the information. The other thing about this is like they just have a lot of clients. And so this person had to see like, have we worked with them in the past? Can I find their name in the Monday board, already? And so I had fun with this because I had to build some of that in essentially of I would test it with myself. I'm like, are there any other records for John in here? If yes, add it to John's list. If not, I need to create a section for John and then add the items underneath it. So a little bit more technical there. Sometimes in the beginning, you might not get as in the weeds or granular as I did for this, but it's just one of those things that we wanted to eliminate as many bottlenecks as possible. And so the other item they had is they had all of their clients that they manage. They have questions that they might submit of, hey, I'm having this issue with the property, or, do you guys handle this, things like that. And there's emails coming in, and in a world of when we get hundreds of emails a day, they wanted a form to manage that. And they have a full task board where they manage all of their day-to-day tasks, whether it's related to property management or just internal team pieces, right? Like follow up with a lead or things like that. And so we built a form in Monday that they have hosted on their website. And so now when that question is submitted, they get a notification. That customer gets an automatic email that says, hey, we got your question. We'll get back to you in 2 to 3 business days. And it's added right in the middle of all of their other tasks. And I think we did something like due 2 days from the day that it's submitted. So we kind of created a separate spot for it, but we also wanted to fit inside of their workflow. They're used to living out of a Kanban board day in and day out. And so we assign it to the right person, they get notified, and it's just right there due 2 days from today, right in the mix of everything else. So it was a great way that we didn't have to create a whole separate workflow that they have to go to another location. There's a lot of great form tools out there like JotForm and Typeform and things like that. But if you now have to go to a separate location to look at that when you spend your entire day in a project management system like Monday or inside of your CRM, that adds those extra steps and those bottlenecks that we keep talking about. So this was a great way to integrate those two systems, no middleman needed, and it's saving a bunch of time and making sure that everything's staying consistent and data is not lost.
Very powerful. Yeah, I think with this particular workflow, listening to the client, listening to what they need, and understanding how to bridge the gap from the CRM to a project management system is extremely powerful. And then understanding where there is power in having a form in Monday versus in the toolkit, right? And having the different views too. So the way that we're looking at Monday, I was in the list view, but there's also the Kanban view, which you mentioned, which is more of that drag and drop typical project management style, right? And having the ability to also strategically understand how this can help alleviate that middleman is a special superpower that you have. And that's where we can help with technology and helping to bridge that gap and reduce the bottlenecks. And when you're talking about these different industries, you talked about on-purpose adventures, and then you talked about property management. It's really cool to see how leveraging technology, we're able to really help bridge those gaps and reduce the bottlenecks. And on average, our customers would say that they save 8 to 10 hours a week by what is built. And so think about the cost of a person. And when we look at the talk that we gave at Startup, this is kind of a continuation of that. So good idea to listen to that podcast episode tomorrow. But also is, it was abbreviated for our slide deck, build systems, not bottlenecks, without hiring first. And we really want to help bridge that gap, right? Because people are expensive. And when we look at manual entries, and it can cause chaos and overwhelm in a way that having a system that literally just works brings so much clarity to the team. And so, John, I really appreciate those examples. I just wanted to kind of highlight that even though different industries, still very powerful in terms of a workflow and creating a system. Again, I think a lot of these companies, you even started this with, you can leverage ChatGPT and you can ask it to help you build this, but there's still some overwhelm when it comes to building a technology. And so the really cool thing with what we do here at the Optimization Specialist is we leverage our suite, but our tech stack that we use as a suite of tools, and we make it work for you. But we've recognized in the marketplace that ClickUp and Monday are probably the most powerful project management systems that we can use to integrate with Make.com. We do leverage Zapier every once in a while, right? But those help bridge the gap. And when we're building CRMs, we've touched on this in the past, but ultimately you want to really focus in on that from lead to client and creating that really white glove service and an opportunity to wow and delight them through this phase. And then once they become a client, we can bridge that gap into these automated workflows that help you continue to scale your company. And so really, I would encourage the audience to listen in and say, you don't always need another person. And in fact, that could confuse your systems. And so if you don't know what your system is, and then you bring somebody in and you try to educate them on that, it could potentially cause chaos again behind the scenes where you're creating this duct tape together kind of back end environment, right? And so kind of just wanted to highlight that because you were very technical in your explanation, but also want to say like this is powerful for other companies and other industries. And as we highlighted on the client side, we have worked with other clients, and the goal of Tech Tuesday is to help alleviate those bottlenecks and help you guys use your tech stack in a more powerful way. So I feel like I just rambled. John, what do you got?
Yeah. Well, I have a couple of thoughts there. One thing I want to highlight about both these automations that I showed were that these are clients that have been with us for a while now. And the reason that we were able to create these is because they knew what was possible, and like their imagination has kind of expanded. And so in the beginning, if you have almost no automations like this in your business, it can be a little scary and overwhelming to think of like, is this possible? How do I set this up? Things like that. I mean, quick plug is like, call us and we'll help you. But if you're trying to just get started on this, getting started on something small can be really powerful. And, and especially online or again with ChatGPT of like, what are some of the top automations for my industry or what my business does? Because there might be some really simple automations out there that you can build. And then again, as your imagination expands, you get more and more in the weeds. But if you're just right now overwhelmed because you have all these bottlenecks, you don't even see like a way out. It seems like automations are just too far away. And so if you don't get, there's probably some type of quote in here that some famous person said, but essentially, if you don't get started, you're never going to make it, further than what you are down the road, right? Somebody said it a lot more eloquently than that. But that's why these clients were able to come back to us, because we've built similar automations in the past and said, oh, if you can do that, I'm also wondering if you can do this. And with the technology today, with the help of AI and things, a lot more is possible today than 2 years ago. Before, connecting a lot of these was a lot more difficult. Yes, we still had Zapier and Make.com, but you had to be incredibly technical to understand how to map different values back and forth. And like, for instance, the next step on this potentially, as we saw, Ben, all of the action items were inside of a spreadsheet. I said, how cool would it be if AI, because right now they're in text form, but what if AI could take that and turn it into like actual items that could then be inserted? They use Monday.com, could be inserted into their Monday.com and assigned to his VA, right? And without AI, admittedly, AI spit back like that list of action items. But let's say we had our list of action items, there is no way to easily extract that. Or like the name of the task would be, have Beth reach out to person and send them an email about X, right? And what you want is like the shortened version of that, of follow up with customer X. And like, that's it. And so AI can take like the full human sentence of that and then convert it into an actual task. And again, I'd have to do some playing around, but if it gave me 4 bullet points, I could essentially turn those 4 bullet points into action items that get added back into the project management system. And so like with AI, it's great that you can take those human words and actually insert that or convert it into technology terms so you can implement it into the applications that you use day in and day out.
Yeah, one thing too that we've kind of touched on, I don't know on the Tech Tuesday, but one thing I want to highlight is that AI is only as powerful as we are, right? And so you're training the AI to do these things. And I think that, going back to these clients have been with us for a while, that's the cool thing. We come in as your tech partner, and we really mean that, because we're going to listen to what you want, but we're never going to overscale something, because we want to keep it simple in a way that you're going to want to use it. Your team is going to want to use this platform, right? It's a new technology. There's always an adoption curve. But if we can build you a robust tool that's going to help scale and save you that time, and then also context switching is exhausting and energy is there, right? And then the money part of this is saving you the money, is you don't need a lot of disjointed systems. If we can help you build something simple to start, essentially the sky is the limit. And that's a really cool thing, because a lot of times, specifically on Monday.com, because they have great marketing, is they're going to get these people who are like, I know we can do this thing, but they don't know quite how to make it work. And John and I are certified Monday.com partners. And so we're here to help. And we want to help build this out for you the right way so that you're actually using it. And again, just to reiterate, like reducing the clutter and the chaos behind the scenes will save you so much time, money, and energy.
Yeah. And I just had a kickoff call today with a new client, and they are in construction, right? They build multi-year projects for like apartment complexes and things like that. And luckily they've been, they bought Monday not too long ago. They've been inside, kind of getting set up a little bit here and there. And then, but because of our expertise, I was able to say, well, we have multiple options in how we can form this data, right? They essentially, when they kick off a project, there's 300 things that need to happen from kickoff until close before they can like close on the building, essentially. And there's a couple different ways that we could put that into their system, but because we've done it a couple times, I was able to explain to them and still tailor it to what they wanted. Sometimes with Monday or any application out there, when they built the technology, they built it with a certain way in mind, and you're sometimes kind of pigeonholed to that particular format. And so like as you become more experienced with those different applications, you understand that there's different ways or like different workarounds to get the data to work in the way that you're used to it working. And so, after we get this all built, we're also working on team buy-in. So that's probably another topic to go about of, it might sound great in your head, but make sure that the rest of your team is going to buy in, because if you're investing, I mean, let's be honest here, thousands of dollars a year in some of these project management systems, you want to make sure that your team's going to use it. If you're spending that and your team's not saving any time and it's actually taking more time because you put in all these weird steps for them to document, or like things just aren't running smooth, you've almost created a new bottleneck, and you're no better off. You're almost in a worse spot than what you were before. And so being very strategic, working with your team to understand what the best workflow is, and then using the technology to build that system is critical as you're trying out these new applications. And that's a big thing we talked about during our workshop of don't just go and build, like you want to build the right system that's continuously evolving from quarterly, or annually.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to turn it over. I see a couple questions here, and so I'll just kind of ask these out. First one is, which one do you prefer in terms of project management system? Is it Monday.com or ClickUp, and why?
Yeah, it's a difficult question because it depends on the need of the client. At one point, Monday, I think, was falling behind, and ClickUp stood out because they had some more automations and they had a lot more things out of the box. Monday has stepped up with AI now, and I feel like they're a little bit more on par. One of the bigger things we saw, especially for startup companies, is the billing. I don't want you to make a decision just off of billing, but the fact that Monday charges in like buckets of seats, right? So they sell like 3 to 5 seats at a time. We had a couple clients that only needed 11 seats, but had to pay for 15. But a lot of it really depends on the structure. So in Monday, they try to keep a lot of their tasks within the same board, and like templates are a different way. I love the way that ClickUp does templates. If you are constantly, like when we built ClickUp for that social media management company, if you are always have the same checklist, or you constantly are building things that are repetitive, I think ClickUp kind of takes the lead in that, because they have a lot of ways that you can do it by folder level, by list level, even by space level. You can create things, and we utilize that heavily with our client. And then they edit it down the road of launching new clients and things like that. So it really depends on what you're looking for. If you ever want our support in just picking a project management company, I highly recommend you reach out, because depending on what your needs are, I might point you in a slightly different direction.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I'll add on that too is I've seen a lot of power behind, and maybe with Monday, it's gotten better at this with their AI implementations. But I really like the SOP component inside of ClickUp. I think that there's a lot of power in SOP, so a standard operating procedure, right? And when you look at that repeatable process, how do you document that so you know who's responsible for what and when those things are due? Monday has a really clear, colorful, fun way of seeing that. ClickUp allows you to even do search functionality in there, and so it's just this powerful tool that you're already using, and it almost gets smarter as you are using it to its fullest capacity. And as you're building that, we come alongside you so that you're building it cleanly. I think sometimes we can overload things and like, oh, this system's going to do all the things, and then it just becomes cluttered, chaotic in the background again. And we want to help you really streamline those things, right? We're really helping you reduce those bottlenecks. And so kind of encourage that as well. I don't know if that sparks anything else for you on this question.
Yeah, I was going to say ClickUp definitely, I think, pulls ahead on the SOP side. I feel like they give you the ability to create more of a wiki. Monday kind of implemented if you have a Notion or even let's like a Google Docs, like sure, you have a live document, multiple people can edit at the same time. You can reference other items throughout the board, but with ClickUp, you create that wiki that you can kind of more create like a workspace, a wiki with different pages, different sections, locations, and then to your point, that AI brain of I can ask questions in human form. It can go search through my whole database of knowledge or my whole knowledge base of information. That's where ClickUp definitely pulls ahead. And I think, we did that with Evolve as a franchise in the franchise industry, I guess you could say. They wanted to make sure that they had a great knowledge base for all of their franchisees. And so ClickUp was a great place to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. It looks like there's another question regarding CRM scares. So before I ask the question, I'll just preface with CRMs are extremely powerful. And I think a lot of times, just talking to hundreds of founders at this point, people think that they don't need them. They're like, it's in my head. I know who I've talked to. And it's like, that's not necessarily the full intent of a CRM. And I think the power of a CRM really plays into automating the repeatable, but also kind of keeping track of small pieces. So even something as simple as automating hey, don't forget to send this birthday gift, because that makes somebody feel special, gives them that experiential dynamic that often as humans we'll get busy and we'll forget. And so the question here is, how do you choose how to build the CRM and what is the best flow? And so I think if I were to extract that, maybe we can talk about pipelines a little bit and just workflows. And how does that look kind of behind the scenes? How would you answer that, John?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, every client is different, right? That's one thing, because we never went into like one specific industry. Every client is unique, right? Right now we're building for a plastic fabricator, but then we're also building for an AI company, and it's more of just a sales pipeline. So I do think that almost every CRM should, at minimum, like if it doesn't have a pipeline where you can manage like the different stages of a deal as you take a client from slightly interested to more interested to like closing the deal, then to me, it shouldn't call itself a CRM. It's kind of definitely like the minimum piece of that. But with CRMs, one thing I was going to add to what you're saying earlier is you definitely can change systems, but the more information you put in, the more you're kind of married to that system. And so sometimes people might go and say, oh, I can get I know HubSpot has like a free version of it, and it'll get you kind of started and has like a lot of limitations and things. It's like their top of funnel piece to turn you into, to convert you over to their hundreds of dollars a month that they charge. But don't let price turn you away, because hopefully they're charging, what they're worth, and the more bells and whistles that you have, the better off you're going to be in the future. Now, also don't go for the bells and whistles because it sounds good and you're not that size company yet. So there's kind of two sides to that. But understanding that you are where you are today, and at minimum you want to track a list of contacts, information on them, and tracking those stages. But down the road, automations is that key piece. And so if you've got thousands of contacts and clients that you've had lots of conversations with, migrating that is difficult. It's not impossible, but it is difficult, and change is difficult. And so, you might get, you might pull towards this new CRM because it has a couple of shiny things, but you didn't realize that it also eliminated one of your favorite features inside of your CRM, because you just assumed all CRMs have this. So that is one thing I will say is like, be very strategic and methodical when you're picking a CRM, because it's going to become a core part of your business. And then when it comes to laying it out, kind of goes back to the same idea of project management. Work with your team to understand what information do they need to know, what are we trying to track on the CRM, when do automations need to go out, and kind of walk through that step. And what you have today is good to build off of. But if you're purchasing a new piece of technology, hopefully it's doing more than what you have today. So like if you have spreadsheets, you might say, oh, all I need is a first name, last name, email, and phone number. And like, I don't need any more than that. Well, I don't want to use the word small-minded, but like if your imagination is hindered, then you're not going to be as creative and you're probably not going to look as complex of a system. So imagine take where you are today, but imagine where you want to be a year or a couple years from now, and realize that if I have 2 people today and I want a team of 10 2 years from now, those workflows are going to look a little bit different. And if the CRM is only built for a team of 2 to 3 people, you're going to have to switch, and it's going to be painful, 2 years from now as you grow to 10 plus members on your team.
Yeah, that's great, John. Thank you for answering that. I'll also add to here at the Optimization Specialist, we use our CRM, the toolkit, right? And one of the things I really like is also our CRM pipeline for our podcast guests. So we use it for leads. We use it for once that lead becomes a client, then we bridge that gap. They end up in ClickUp. So we have a workflow for that. And as they move through the different stages in the Kanban view, they get triggered different automations or text messages. And so that's all built on the back end, right? We're creating this system that works for you based on what your desires and needs are. And then in addition to that, I touched on the podcast one. I like how it's like, okay, they're a potential guest, and then we can send out this as we move forward. They get an automated email that says, here's the link to fill out the application. And then as we move, once they fill that out, then they get moved into the next section. And in the next section, it's like, okay, now we're going to schedule some time to meet with you. And once that happens, now they're starting to get the triggers of, hey, don't forget, we have a calendar, or we have an event coming up. It's on your calendar, but here's your text and email reminders 3 days before, 24 hours before, right? And it's automating that back end stuff so that when I get on the call or John gets on a call with a podcast guest, they're well prepared because we've already sent them this information that they need versus us saying, did you send it to this person? Oh no, I forgot, or I got busy, or it's midnight, right? Like we're constantly moving forward. And so I think it's really neat too, because all of that information, whether they started as a lead, turned into a client, became a guest on our podcast, it's tied into their contact information, which is where we can track the name of their kids and their dogs and their birthday and all the little special things that, oh, I hop on this call, it's like, oh, your birthday's tomorrow, happy birthday, right? I wouldn't remember that, but I have a system in place that helps me remember that. And so I think there's a lot of power in using the system, right? Because as the quote said, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. And if we look at that, like our goal might be to remember to send the follow-up or the pre-follow-up emails and to remind them like, hey, happy birthday. But if our systems are not helping us do that, we are human. And so I think it's really powerful of what we've talked about today. And I'm not seeing any other questions, but John, is there anything else you want to plug in here?
I was thinking of something on the CRM side. From like a conversation perspective. So that is another feature that I love about the toolkit, and most CRMs do. And I kind of put this on the minimum requirements list of being able to track your emails, and even better would be like text messages inside of the CRM. And back to that point of when people are on vacation, when you have a larger team, I want to be able to go in and kind of see what that conversation was if I need to pick up where, the salesperson left off, as an example. And so typically it's only going to be seen and used by the person that's having that conversation, but there's definitely times where like you want to pick up and have that conversation. Actually, I was meeting with a person that does marketing. They do banners and t-shirts and all these different things. And today she has to go she at least has access to their Outlook accounts, and she has to go in and kind of manage that. But I placed an order through her, and I realized that like I never got a follow-up for reviews, as an example. And so like those are things, again, because I'm in the space, I'm constantly thinking, not even from a how do I get more business perspective, but it's just, oh, this would be a cool little thing for you to do. And so think of different ways that not only do you want to track it so you have that good information to have those great conversations, but also on the automation side of you can definitely grow your business regardless of tracking the conversations because of those automations that are in place. And that goes back to what we kicked this off of. But like review management is another small automation that I think is a huge detail. So if you do projects for people, or it's not quite gig work, but essentially even if you're a home services business, at the end of that, you want to ask for that review. And with So Fabulous, who was on that list of our customers, they do alterations. And so we integrated with their POS system. So when they place an order, it gets added to the CRM, and then they're able to track that. But they update when that order is complete, and then within a day, I think it's within an hour, we send out an automated request for review. And then also the other thing that's baked into the toolkit is it uses AI to respond to reviews. Most of the time it's a thank you, but that helps your Google rankings because it's showing that you're responsive. And as a customer, I want to go and see somebody that appreciates my business. We talked a little bit about automating. I remember one of the myths that we busted at the workshop was automation is kind of like cold. But at the same time, when you're busy doing 100 things, I think it's okay to, especially for like a thank you, it's great to just respond to that to make sure that they feel seen. And you definitely would have done it yourself, but it might not be until a week from now when you have a time to, do the check on the reviews. But it keeps your page busy in a good way, and it just like helps increase that Google ranking. So there's a lot of small things that you can do with the CRM or automation tools out there that you have to just keep thinking about as you continue to grow your business.
Yeah, 100%. It's one of those things, I think we've all experienced good CRMs, and we've all experienced, we'll call them rough CRMs in a way that, like, even last night, I was kind of annoyed. I know somebody who just got a CRM, and it's not from us, but sent 3 to 4 different emails between 9:30 and 10:30, and they're all different titles. Save $25, save $10. I'm like, oh my gosh, you didn't schedule these right. And so it was just annoying me that to the point where I wanted to turn it off. So to your point of it being cold or inhumane, like, that's where we walk alongside and make sure your tech stack is set up properly. And so with that, I'm gonna share my screen one more time, and I'll start to kind of wrap us up. So just as a reminder, we've touched on this several times, but we don't rise to the level of our goals. We do fall to the level of our systems. We went through some automation tips today. Thank you, John, for showing us a couple of client examples and then talking us through that as well. Thank you to our audience for asking some questions. If you have additional questions, please feel free to reach out. I'll do a small plug here. So I guess I need to update this slide. We have a new LinkedIn business page. So you can find us online at the Optimization Specialist. And if you want to find us on LinkedIn, you can find both of our profiles here. John, do you want to maybe give a light intro as to why you are the expert to be building these technology solutions?
Yeah, I know.
We
jumped into the workshop and we didn't go over ourselves. Yeah, so I've been in software development now for over 10 years. And so this, I really I've enjoyed the business that we've built here because I get to put on that hat. I don't write code as much as I used to anymore, but definitely get to help solve problems through technology. And it's my favorite way to solve problems is honestly using technology. I use it in my personal life, finding 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. But being able to do that for our clients from all these different businesses and backgrounds has been great because I've been passionate about business for I can't tell you how long. And so getting to kind of peek behind the curtain of all these different businesses and help support them because they're all small business owners to a degree, right? And they're all trying to grow and they're all great people that we work with. And so, yeah, but from the expert side, 10 years of software development experience, and now 3 years doing this for clients specifically in this area.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing. And just a quick highlight on me. You mentioned, I don't know how long I've been passionate about this, and it made me think, oh, gosh, it's been over 3 decades at this point, which is just kind of crazy to say, but super fun, love business, love strategy, and kind of started on this more on the operational strategic side and realized needed a tech partner. And so was thankful and very grateful to meet John along the way of starting a company. And with that, I come through with a strong strategic background. I feel like I have this way of seeing how the puzzle will fit and helping guide the clients toward that. And so it's a really fun opportunity. We have worked with several different industries, but our favorite, I would say, is probably something that is franchise because it's a very easy plug and play, and we want to help you scale. And then also health and wellness is the fun industry because we're both passionate about that. But ultimately, as mentioned before, we are here to help our clients save time, money, and energy. We want to thank you for joining us on Tech Tuesday. And if you want to get in touch with us, we would be happy to provide a free audit. You can go to our website and just ping us if you want the code for that. And we will see you next month. We do Tech Tuesday at the end of every month on the last Tuesday from 3:30 to 4:30 Central Standard Time. And so thank you, John. Thank you, audience, for being here. And we will see you next time.
See you next time.